Faith here with your welcome toast. Raisin cookies that look just like chocolate chip cookies are the main reason we all have trust issues.
I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops.
It's great to have you joining the party on the Faith Middleton Food Schmooze, inviting you to eat, drink, and be merry with us. What a show we have for you. We're going to talk later on with Bill Yosses, who was the former pastry chef in the Obama White House. He's been on this show before, and he is really remarkable with pastry, and he's got a new book out. And it's about how to lessen the amount of sugar in your desserts and appreciate them more because you can taste the other ingredients. So we're going to get to that later on. We have a wine for you for the holidays, whether it's a gift or to drink for that special meal. We're going to talk about appetizers with the holidays coming, and on we go. My treasured food buddies are here. Senior contributors Chris Prosperi, Alex Province, Mark Raymond. Hey, everybody. Hey. Good to have you here. Can we start with, I have this idea that there is something you can do at the holidays for people. Sometimes I do this at regular dinner parties. When you sit down at the table, I'm very interested in the presentation. And by that, I mean, I like to make a present at every person's seat. I'm not talking about anything expensive at all. I'm talking about the smallest thing with a note on a card with their name on it. I go to box stores because it's cheaper there. And I get a decorating paper, a gift paper that I like. I get ribbon that goes with it that I think is really fun. Mm-hmm. One year I was doing a nighttime thing on New Year's Eve, and I did the whole thing black wrapping, black bows, because it was kind of chic, really. But, I get wrapping, I get bows. And then I start searching around for these little tiny inexpensive presents. It might be a seashell that you have either collected or bought at a store. It could be a few bags of a specialty you love. It could be a hot chocolate. It could be a collection of spices that you love from the health food store, so they're like 30 cents a bag. And I put it in the Box with tissue paper. I wrap up the box in my special wrapping paper. I make a bow, and I write a note to that person, and I say something about them and what a pleasure it is to have them at the table. And then just a sweet little note. And I put the name of the person on the outside of the envelope. Now, that serves as your place card. I put these at every person's place. They sit down and they say, "Oh, what's this?" It doesn't matter how fancy it is. They read the card and they feel treasured. It's a wonderful way to start a meal, and it's really fun for me to decorate these packages.
I love that.
Yeah, you are the best. I mean, the next time I'm having a dinner party, I need to call you because the table's always the last thing I get to, and is by far.
I
know, you're like the rest of us.
Yeah, but that is by far the nicest thing I've ever heard as far as a dinner party.
Agreed.
It not only makes you feel like welcomed in your home, but it also gets the conversation going especially if you're dining with people that you don't see that often. Everyone sits down and you have that little awkward pause. You probably don't even have that, right?
No.
That's just gone because you sit down and you're like, oh my God, look at that.
And for me, as you're listening, for you too, as you write the note to the person, and you can do this a week ahead, a few days ahead, as you're doing this, you can say, think about the person for a minute. What's a good quality about that person? If you don't know them, because, we call them the orphans in our family. Outsiders can arrive and you say, it means the world to us to have you at our table to share this meal with you and get to know you. And
brings them into the family.
Yeah, it just doesn't matter. And I'm talking about simple things that cost $2.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It costs nothing. It takes
or
no
free
time.
If it's a show.
And how long would it take if you're having 10 people over, 8 people over? Minutes.
You could
And-
do this for 4, for
Yeah,
8, for
yeah.
12, whatever it is.
And it doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't cost a lot of money, and it says so much.
It's like the Christmas cracker, except you
Yeah.
actually get something sentimental and not a bad joke in the middle.
All right.
All right, I'm going to start doing this at my dinner parties.
It's
Yeah, I
just
love that.
easy,
It's just a
and
nice-
it's not
Yeah.
expensive. That's
Yeah.
the main thing.
You put
And you
it
could
on the-
probably get pretty creative with, the containers you're using.
Little bottles, right?
Miniature bottles. There's
With a little
boxes.
bow on the
Yeah,
top,
they have
right?
all these little miniature bags. Where you
That's a
can put
good
it in.
idea.
There's so many different things.
Hitting up Michael's on the way home.
If you have a rambunctious friend, you could just be like, be nice. Be nice tonight.
You always have one of those in the family, right?
Eat the Brussels sprouts and be
Uncle
quiet.
Ned, don't say that.
Be quiet.
Yeah.
You're talking.
Hey, you. Cut it out.
Oh my goodness. So all right, I'm glad that was well received. And
Yeah,
let's
that's
see
incredible. I love it.
about the appetizers as people are walking in the door for the holidays. Now, some people are going to have just straight out parties and they're just cocktails and hors d'oeuvres and all that. But what if you're having dinner for 4 or 8 or 12 or even more because it's the holidays? What are your ideas about hors d'oeuvres? I'm someone who thinks keep them light. Julia Child, who was someone I knew, she would just do goldfish
I love
in a
that.
bowl.
In a bowl.
And they come in so
No.
many different flavors now.
You can have the
Honestly,
pizza ones and-
you know what? I haven't even checked.
Oh,
Do
Yeah.
they?
and different
Oh.
colors too.
Different
Orange and
colors. They
yellow
probably
and
have
blue.
colored for the holiday
Yeah.
as well.
She would have loved that.
Oh, yeah.
So she would just put out a bowl of those, and there would be no hors d'oeuvres because that's
that's
she
an
thought
hors
a
d'oeuvre.
meal is coming, which is what I think. But some people want to do elaborate hors d'oeuvres. How do you all feel about this?
I know Garden does truffled popcorn, which is great because popcorn doesn't fill you
Yeah,
up. The
that's
only
good.
downside to it is you can buy the truffle oil really inexpensively and you just drizzle it on, but it's pretty pungent smelling.
Yeah.
And so my only thought was, when people come through the door, I don't know if truffle's the right smell.
Right, right.
Really? I
Well,
would
it's
I
think
think
kinda-
I would.
it's kinda like-
I'd like it.
that's way better than pine to me. It's like-
Those
Vine's all
Christmas
clean.
candles.
Okay, so
Cinnamon.
but are you? Let me go around. Mark Raymond, are you heavy hors d'oeuvres or are you light hors d'oeuvres?
We're mostly heavy hors d'oeuvres around our family.
Because hors d'oeuvre time is probably a long time before the dinner, right?
It is. There's a good hour and a half, 2 hours
Yeah.
before we sit
Oh,
down
so
to eat.
that's a different story. I agree with you. But for me, it's often a briefer time. If I could just say, welcome to my home and shove people into their
Get
dinner
your butts
chairs,
in the
I would do
chair.
that because I'm concentrating on the dinner. Alex, how about you and Matt? What do you do?
We do a cheese board, so we use that rule of a hard cheese, a soft cheese, and a medium cheese, some nice crackers, and then part liquid. So then we would do the standard flute with the raspberry and some cava, prosecco, or something, and
Something bubbly.
something bubbly, or add a
Absolutely,
little
gotta have
Aperol.
bubbles.
And
Oh, yeah.
dilute it with
So
water. If you
I
don't want
always
people to get-
love to do this. For people who don't know what Aperol is, it
Sure.
is liqueur from Italy.
It's like Campari. It's made by the same people. So I would say Campari is like a more masculine version. Aperol is like a little more delicate. And it's similarly beautiful orange colored. And you can just take a flute, add a little Prosecco, add a little drizzle of Aperol. It lasts forever. You don't need a lot. And then top it off with sparkling water. And then it doesn't have alcohol or very much. So you don't.
So
Low
the-
alcohol.
these are bright orange, and they're secret recipes
Roots and
of
berries and
herbs and
orange.
roots and berries. And they're said to be digestives, but they're low alcohol, they're easy on the palate. Really, I think they were designed to give inexpensive sparkling wine a little oomph.
Yeah.
Right?
And
I
they
think
have
so.
a bitterness to them, which actually makes you hungry. So it's that sort
Stimulates
of
the
bitter
appetite.
Yeah.
flavor that gets you ready to eat.
Chris, are you a believer in big appetizers?
I'm with you. I'm in your camp. Light, simple, and in oversleeping this one Sunday morning, I came out with my favorite appetizer of all time now. Courtney let me oversleep. So she set up the most amazing bar for Bloody Marys. right? And she had celery sticks, and it was just gorgeous. I was going to wake up early, make my crab salad, and serve it on a little crostini or whatever because I like light appetizer. So anyway, she lets me sleep to the point where the guests are coming in the door. And I'm getting oh my gosh, I'm brushing my teeth, and she's like, they're coming in. I'm like, wow. I run over to the refrigerator. I grab my crab. I start looking around, and I see the Bloody Mary setup, and it's so beautiful that I take the glasses and I stuff crab meat in each glass. I take the Bloody Mary mix, I put it in a martini shaker, in a cocktail shaker, and then I take a little bit of olive oil and a little more lemon juice. And then as guests are coming in the door and I'm standing there, I'm shaking this, I pour it over the crab. I hand them a little cocktail fork in it. I drizzle a little bit more vodka on top, and I say we're starting with crab cocktails. And it is a drink and a appetizer all in one. It was like one of those.
Excuse me while I go
perfect...
shower.
Yeah,
you guys make yourself at home.
I'm going to get dressed now. I'm still in a robe.
Here's the stove.
But it's now.
This is
I
where
serve
the
it,
china is.
I serve it at every dinner party I do now, and it's just
know,
fresh.
how
it's light,
delicious.
It's fun.
Your box has instructions how to use the kitchen.
Yeah, and I don't oversleep anymore.
How delicious. All right, you are listening to the Food Schmooze Party. I'm with my food buddies, Mark Raymond, Alex Provence, Chris Prosperi, and Robin Doyen-Aiken, our senior producer. Also want to thank Kion Wolf, who is engineering today's show, and we so appreciate it. And of course, we have recipes coming. We have the Obama White House pastry chef, Bill Yosses, joining us in a couple of segments, so stay with us for that. He's got this theory that sugar is being used as a main ingredient and actually ought to be used as an accent, the way sometimes butter is at the end. No need to dump cups of sugar into desserts. And so, fascinating idea. It's how he cooked at the White House. And not only did the Obamas love it, but their guests from around the world love this. I'm very, very intrigued and interested in this philosophy because, too much sugar can be our enemy, although it is a lovely thing. All right, so let's get back to, we're talking about the holiday meals coming from every angle. I'm sorry, we skipped over the wine. We'll get to that in our second segment because we've got a wine that is good if just the two of you or the four of you are having a dinner because it's a little bit more pricey than our $10 to $15 wines. If you're going to someone's house and you are their guest, the idea is to make them happy. So you can walk in the door and say, tuck this away for just the two of you. So we're going to get to that in just a second. Okay.
I'm laughing because I always think of Chris, how he halfway opens the bottle with, his ideas.
I was just thinking that.
Gives you the bottle half open.
With the corkscrew still in it, sticking half out.
So if you are a longtime listener of the show, you've heard this story. But if you are new, and we love that, Chris, can you tell that story again? So you spend a fair amount of money on a wine
like
because
a $40
you're so
bottle.
Appreciative that these people are hosting you, have gone to all this trouble. Go ahead. What do you do?
And you bring it in and you give it to the host and you say thank you. And as they're taking your coat, the wine goes like under your coat and it gets like darted out into some far reach of the house, never to be seen again.
Never to be seen again. For
so
sure.
now, and I did this the first time.
But the reason is you've chosen it to go
share.
just because you are not only to share but to go with this particular food if you know what it is. Let me just say that I spend a fair amount of time in Italy, and in Italy, it's considered rude to bring wine to somebody's house. Why?
Oh, wow.
Because they have spent a lot of time thinking about what wine is to go with your courses or your meal. And so if you bring them wine, they're completely thrown off. And so you bring them flowers and candy, and that's the way it is in Italy. So Chris, tell me what you do.
So I take the foil totally off so there's no mistake. I don't take the cork out, but I take it and I pull it out
You
about...
screw it
Yeah,
in.
no, I take it, to screw it in, and I pull the cork about 3/4 of the way out, so it's up and out, and now I leave the corkscrew in it because I did this once at a
another
party,
gift.
and I handed it to the host, and they said thank you, and they pushed the cork back in, and I never saw the bottle again. So now I leave the cork.
No.
Now I leave the corkscrew in the
love it.
bottle
No, but
with
do
it
you
open,
say
and I
anything?
say, now I say, and I started opening the bottle, and
As I was
as I
coming
was
in.
coming here, that way we can open it and pour it right away.
And share this together.
Yes,
know,
and
I
share
just-
this together.
You know what would be fun is, you know how people do take the bottle and they go into the other room. Later, they'll never remember who gave you the bottle. It would be fun to do what you do, Faith, like write them a note on the wine label saying, this is
Great
special. And this
idea,
would be like, hey,
Alex.
so-and-so, like, I hope you are really enjoying this on a beach, on your anniversary or something.
Excellent on the back.
That's a great
with a
idea.
magic marker. Alex, I love your philosophy of having many kinds of wine on the table because who knows what you like with your turkey and stuffing and cranberry sauce,
Yeah.
and maybe you don't care. It's just wonderful to have a lot of
You can have some
choices.
fancy
Have
stuff, but you
choices,
can
for
also
sure.
have simple stuff that people will recognize and enjoy, and you can have pairing wine, but also have the idea is to make everyone feel welcome. So if you like a Riesling, have a Riesling for somebody. If someone wants something sweet, have something sweet.
This philosophy is so great to me because it says, who cares whether you go white to red to white, what you like with what thing? Let's talk about this on the other side of this break. More mouth-watering conversation and fun ahead on the Faith Middleton Food Schmooze. I hope you will make, I really do, a charitable contribution to feed the hungry among us. We're online now at foodschmooze.org, and we'll be right back.
Come on over, baby. Come on over, baby. Come on over, baby. Hey, boy, don't you know I got something going on?
Beans and cornbread. Beans and cornbread. Beans and cornbread. Beans and cornbread had a fight. Beans knocked cornbread out of sight. Cornbread said, now that's all right. Meet me on the corner tomorrow night. I'll be ready. I'll be ready tomorrow night. I'll be ready. I'll be ready tomorrow night. I'll be ready. I'll be ready tomorrow night. That's what Beans said to cornbread.
Podcasts of this show are available with all of our recommendations at foodschmooze.org. You just sign up once for the podcast and it comes to you in your inbox. You can listen on your schedule, not our schedule. All right, we have a wine. Normally we have 10 to 20, at the most $25 bottles of wine. This time, because it's the holidays, we bumped it up, and it is a beautiful wine. This is something where you walk in the door, you're so proud, and you can, in the Chris Prosperi style, either open the cork halfway and say, this is for us now, or you can say, I do this all the time. I say to people coming in the door, tuck this away for either you or you and your partner. So
Makes it more intriguing. Like, now we've got to open it.
Yeah.
What is
I
that?
know.
Now we've got to open
then
it.
I'm
gotta look
afraid
at
they're going to be
this.
disappointed. But in any case, this is a wine thanks to an Alex Province discovery. The whole title is La Fente de Notre Dame. It is a Gigondas. Now, here's why it's a gift wine, because the price is, what would you say, Alex?
Just under 30, so 28 to 30.
Okay, for either Christmas or Hanukkah, although it's not kosher, you could feel so proud because this wine is so delicious.
Easy to put a bow on it, too.
Oh, yeah.
Just throw a little bow on it.
So Alex, this wine is from 2014, and here we are 3 years later. What does that mean, and what does it go with?
The 14 and 15 year in France were really good. So Another thing about these wines is you can put this in your wine cellar. So if they are going to tuck it away for a little bit, it's fine. It'll
If you have one.
or
wine
in your
cellar.
garage or basement or
A shelf.
or just drink it.
Well,
That sounds easier.
Mark Raymond, can you put it on a shelf and have it be okay?
As
in
long
your
as it's a cool, dark place.
Ooh.
All right.
Well,
Okay.
the biggest mistake that you do though is if you leave the bottle upright. These have a natural cork, and then the cork will dry out.
Right.
And
Air
it needs to
gets
stay
in.
wet.
Now
So
we've
if-
got oxygen.
But you
in
can
the
even put it
bottle.
in your closet. Just lay it sideways with your
Cool,
shoes.
yeah.
Just lay
Really?
it flat.
People.
What?
In my closet in my house. My
Yeah.
house is at 70 plus degrees because I get cold. My closet is not some kind of basement. You know, it's reflecting the temperature of the house. What are you talking about? Can I hang on to a wine like this?
Well, 70. I mean,
70's okay as long
Well,
as
how do we know? People aren't running around with
thermometers.
in their closet.
Like I said, I think steady temperatures more.
I'm going to pour
it's
this.
more
While you're
important.
talking, I'm
Yeah,
going to pour
okay.
this in
but
the glass.
it's more
Go ahead.
important to keep it at a steady temperature than it is at a cold
No
temperature.
highs,
one
no
of the
lows.
only
No highs,
ways
no
that I
lows.
know of
Yeah.
to ruin a wine, and I've done it, is to get it hot.
Yeah.
If you come home and you put a case of wine next to a radiator or in your car and it's a hot
That's
summer
where
day
you
with the
ruin it.
windows
Yep,
rolled up
then
and you
you-
or
do
on top of the
errands,
refrigerator.
if it gets hot,
Yeah.
it will
Over the
ruin the wine.
stove.
But too
78.
cold, they talk about vibration, but what kind of vibration are you going to have in your house? I mean,
Well,
it's
wait,
not like we're...
but people talk about, as we get to this La Font Notre Dame Gigondas, which is
Say it
a
again.
rough,
Gigondas.
kind of big wine that we're going to tell you what it goes with for the holidays. So there's this issue among wine people about whether it's okay to keep your wine in a refrigerator, because actually the refrigerator with its motor vibrates. So assuming my closet is the same temperature as my house, would I be better off putting this in my refrigerator?
Here's the thing. It's
no,
not
that
a...
would
It's
be
a
too cold.
It's a $30 bottle of wine. When people talk about preserving wine, for long term, they're talking about
years,
saving
yeah.
something that's like you're going to save for 25 years. I hope you're going to, by saving it, we mean like you're going to save it for a couple of months or a year or a couple
Or
of
2
years.
or 3 years.
Yeah.
2 to 3 years.
But
Yes.
not, life is too short. Drink this bottle of wine. Don't,
But here's the thing.
or call me, I'll come over. I'll drink it
If
for
you
you.
need
We
help,
will help you
Alex
drink wine.
is available.
So I have a wine refrigerator and I do this. I don't expect most people are going to do that. They don't necessarily have a wine cave with a humidifier.
Yeah.
So
Basements are perfect.
can you? Well, can I put it in my refrigerator?
I-
6
In your
months
wine
or 9
refrigerator or
months?
your regular?
No, my regular refrigerator.
No.
Wait. We just said heat is the enemy of wine.
Yeah, but
It
the
takes up room,
cold,
too, if
Cold
you-
does the same thing. If
It
if it gets too cold, it
Well,
can
where
be
am I
bad.
putting it if I don't have a wine cave?
Well, if you've got a closet in the middle of the house that's away from all
The furnace, away from the furnace.
burners or the heaters or the
These
forced
guys-
hot air.
Chris Prosperi, what are you thinking as we say this?
I never have this problem because 2 years, keeping a wine for 2 years?
Yeah.
Come on. Drink it.
Drink it.
Enjoy
Life
it.
is short.
Life
You
is
know what?
short.
Yeah.
It's the holidays. You want to gift wine to give to somebody, whether it's for this holiday, their birthday, an anniversary. This is a beautiful wine, but it's a big wine. So you want beef and stew.
Lamb.
Yeah.
We think
See,
alike.
I like that. Boom.
They're bumping fists. So it's La Font, F-O-N-T. This is on our website,
I have-
foodschmooze.org. And it's 2014. Gigondas, Alex. What is a Gigondas?
It's the name of the town. It's an old Roman town. It's a hillside. Romans have been planting grapes there for 2,000 years. It's so picturesque. Matt and I did a tour of France. It's that romantic part of France that you love. The north of France in the wine country is beautiful, but it's cold and it's austere. You get down south. Now it's the rolling hillsides, the
this in
cypress
the
trees.
south?
This is south of France.
South of Lyon.
It's it's where you want to buy like a house and retire, like an old hut, and plant lavender around your house and grow
But
citrus.
here's what I'm confused about.
Sage,
So
lavender.
Gigondas is to me always a really big, powerful. You know how people say a lot of the Wall Streeters, big reds. I want a big Tuscan red. So this is France. I
So
think
they-
of a Gigondas as a really big red.
Big one.
Why is that in the
Robust.
south of
It's
France?
because the heat is what's getting, cabs, it's the heat that gives them the ripeness and the power. So this is the south of France. So unlike Burgundy, that's cooler and you have the delicate Pinot Noir, this is south of France. So this is the Grenache, which is really a Spanish grape designed to tolerate heat, blended with Syrah and Mourvedre, and it's just big, rich, robust,
rich and
teeth-staining
robust.
wine.
Hearty wine.
This is, beef
Warm your
stew we were
bones.
talking about, beef bourguignon.
Warm your
or-
bones.
Yeah,
that's
just
the kind of
Mark,
wine
good.
this is.
What's our
How about
ideal?
a roasted leg of lamb? I love that.
Yes.
Beef
Okay.
stew.
Well,
Beef
Lamb
stew.
chops.
This is crazy, though. But if you
Beef
were going to just
stew.
take your prunings from your backyard or save them in the summertime, in your driveway or your backyard, build a little fire out of sticks, and then take a lamb chop with salt and just really quickly cook them over like fire. And this with that wine,
Oh, because of the
Wait,
char.
wait,
because
what
of
are
the
we?
smoke and the char.
Wait, what are
Yeah.
we
a
cooking
piece
over
of
this?
lamb. Like a beautiful,
Okay. What about a
lamb chop.
steak? What about a
steak? would be
steak?
great, but lamb chop, this one, it's so powerful that like that gaminess from lamb,
Yeah.
just sort of, that would be a fun classic
So
pairing.
I'm drinking
I
it
would-
right now.
I'd love to have this. I was thinking more along the lines of
You know what?
of braised
this
short
is
rib.
oh,
good.
Braised
that's
short
a
ribs,
great
which Chris
with
does a great job with. And,
polenta.
Yeah.
I'm drinking this right now. This Lafont Notre Dame.
How about cassoulet?
Gigondas from
that's
that
what it's
region
classically
of France. Gigondas. And you hear them saying it has incredible body. And my thought is, they're talking about lamb. Of course, that would be beautiful. A steak, something really kind of hearty. So it could be grilled sausages
Oh,
and
that's good.
peppers. But Alex, with this particular wine, what I love about it, because I've had a lot of these, is there's if we think velvety, we think elegance. So there is a touch of elegance and yet a beefiness to this wine, a structure to this wine. And I love the streak of velvety stuff in here.
These big wines, if you open a big wine like this and you decant it, and you don't need a fancy crystal anything. You
And
can
what
pour
does
it
a
into
decanting
it's just
do?
a pitcher.
Pour
just
it into any pitcher,
any
water
pitcher.
pitcher.
It gets
Clay.
air
What
into
happens?
it.
Glass.
All of a sudden, it aerates the wine as you pour it through the air. It bubbles and splashes around in the glass. That air softens the wine and makes a big wine like this become on
you
your
believe
palate.
it? Do you
yeah,
believe that?
because I
Oh,
opened
it's
this
for sure.
bottle.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
now I want to talk to Alex and Mark, both wine brokers, about this. There have been, Chris, you know this too. There have been a lot of articles. Half say that's bull, and the other half say it really is, when you add oxygen, it really does oxygenate the wine and bigger flavors come through. Do you both, from your own experience, not from what people have told you?
I'll prove it to you. If you take a bottle of wine that's really tannic, and you can get an inexpensive Bordeaux.
Tannic meaning?
Tannic is that tea bag taste, like the
structure,
bitter,
Just the
bitter,
grip
very
that you get.
tight,
makes your
tight.
teeth furry. It's that sensation. It's a textural feeling on your mouth. Open up a bottle of Bordeaux, young Bordeaux that's, maybe not fancy, and then try it then. Keep it on your counter. Try it tomorrow night after work.
Have I poured it into anything?
Well, first try it and pour it into a glass when you first open it and just taste it. Cork it up. Now at this point, the wine fill has gone now to the shoulders of the wine where the wine bottle gets big. And now you've introduced air into the bottle. Tomorrow night, open it again and pour it into a glass and try it. The wine will be softer the second day.
Two different wines sometimes.
So, Chris, you're a restaurant chef. You see this happening, and I know you like wine, and you have an incredible wine cellar. Do you find this is true?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's no question. We especially like on wines that are very young and very big. That we even tell our guests, if you just let it sit in your glass for, even if you don't rush, just sit there and let it sit for a minute or two and swirl it around and get air in it. It changes the flavor.
And most
And
people
can I-
will notice from the first glass to the last glass
Mark
they have
Raymond.
that bottle.
Yeah.
It's a real thing happening.
And just to show the chemistry that's happening now, on the third night or fourth night, it takes, each wine's different. The wine will finally get to a point where it oxidizes, and you'll taste it. And if you're a restaurant, Chris, you'll know. And you do wines by the
yes.
glass. If wines have been open for too long,
Over the
they'll,
weekend we
they'll
have
become
problems.
they'll taste oxidized, and it's the same
becomes a
chemistry
negative
that's
effect,
happening.
yeah.
It becomes negative, and then it becomes like sherry-esque, and that's the taste you're getting. So oxidation's the same principle of cutting an apple in half and then leaving it on the counter, and it turns brown. That's simple oxidation.
So here's the thing. We're not trying to be geeky with you. We're trying to share what we've learned about wine in case it increases your pleasure of wine. That's our deal. Okay. We love the local. Please support your local food growers and food makers for on-demand podcast delivery of the Food Schmooze Party every week. And to find terrific food, wine, cocktails, restaurant recommendations, hot topics, our short, fun streaming videos, and the recipes we feature, we are always online talking with you at foodschmooze.org. We'll be right back.
It's just a little crush, not like a faint every time we touch. It's just some little thing, not like everything I do depends on you.
You got me lifted, feeling so gifted. Sugar, how you get so fly? Sugar, how you get so fly? Ooh, sugar, how you get so fly? Sugar, how you get so fly? Ooh, sugar, how you get so fly?
This is the Food Schmooze Party, offering the richness of life and coming to you in Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New York, including Westchester County, the east end of Long Island, and that means the Hamptons. The senior producer is Robin Doyen-Aiken. To hear the show on WNPR, it airs Thursdays at 3 and Saturdays at noon. Podcasts and our curated recommendations are always online at foodschmooze.org. Okay, people, here we go. Former White House pastry chef Bill Yosses has, ironically, hit the sweet spot with his new book on dialing back the sugar when you bake, using sugar as, an accent, the way you'd use spices, let's say. Pastry chef Bill Yosses' new book is called The Sweet Spot. Are the recipes easy? Mostly no, because you have to get a whole bunch of stuff. But if you want to absorb his philosophy, to figure out how to incorporate it in your dessert making, please have a look and a listen. Bill Yosses, welcome to the Food Schmooze Party.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Bill, we have known each other for a long, long time.
Yes, we have.
And I am so excited about this concept of the way you use butter. We used to, there are still restaurants that soak steaks in butter.
Mm-hmm.
Your genius spot is, and in fact, the name of your book, The Sweet Spot, is to say, why isn't sugar a flavoring agent? Because if you put in too much sugar, it knocks out the flavors of everything else, and it's not necessarily the best thing for us. So can you talk with me before we get into your great recipes about your philosophy on this?
Well, you hit the nail on the head, Faith, because I think it's sort of like a war of escalation, like you compared it to the butter. One chef uses 2, and so the next one feels he has to use 3 to outdo. And I feel like what's happened in our desserts is that there's so much sugar in everything else in our diet, in salad dressings and soups and, of course, in sodas, that we've become sort of immune to the effects of sugar in the sense that we don't sense it anymore. So by the time people get to dessert at the end of a meal, I think chefs feel they have to ramp up so much sugar so that it really registers.
Do you feel like after a meal the palate is exhausted?
It is. I mean, it's already tasted all these wonderful things. Hopefully it's been a great meal. So you really just need sort of a finishing touch. What I like about reducing the sugar is that the other flavors of the dessert come out.
Like what?
In the case of grains, for example, so in this book we use some alternative grains like millet and quinoa and buckwheat and rye. So those are great flavors which are sort of revealed when the sugar is reduced.
Let me jump in here and ask you this question because I know there are people thinking this. When you use these things, quinoa and the rest, do these alter the flavor? How does it affect the dessert when you use them? It may be better for us because some of these things process better in the bloodstream.
Well, that's completely true. And the one thing that I, with my co-writer and recipe testers, always said is we don't want somebody to serve a dessert from this book and have to explain it. The host or hostess should not have to say, well, this is, X dessert, but we wanted these desserts to come to the table and stand on their own, and they do. So in many cases, we used just the amount of these grains or other flavors, these layered flavors, to lend a kind of interest to the dessert, but not overtake it. Mm-hmm. So things like millet and quinoa, they do have a personality, and they show up in the dessert. But we sort of veered towards using them as we might use nuts or a nut flour, so that they're an accent and they don't take over.
Ah, okay. Quick question before we get to the maple apple tart tatin. Did when you were with the Obamas in the White House as their pastry chef, did they request this, or was this your idea through conversation? How did this come to be?
Well, a little bit of both. For a long time, in bakeries and pastry shops that I worked, many customers said to me, well, I tried this recipe, but I just automatically cut back the sugar. And I think many people have that in mind, and we're kind of surprised that many recipes still work with less sugar. And then Mrs. Obama famously launched the Let's Move program, which was an effort to make better food choices, and including exercise, and just a general effort to improve the health of the nation, especially regarding obesity and diabetes, two things which are directly related to sugar consumption. So it was a combination of the two. It kind of came together in a great way, and that's what inspired me to write this book.
I'm trying to think how to pose this question to you, and I'm looking at everybody here on the show with me.
We're friends. You can just write it out.
Here's the thing. We all are drawn to the worlds we're drawn to. And sometimes people who get into the quote-unquote nutrition world do not necessarily, please don't be offended by this, but do not necessarily have the kind of super taste buds, high-level taste buds. And so the food ends up tasting bland to other people.
Yeah, that's certainly the elephant in the room. That's why I say no recipe should have to be explained or should have to justify itself, I think, on the health criteria. What we suggest in the book, and we call it the 7 pillars of baking wisdom, is that we want to make great desserts. We want to use delicious ingredients, and that may be sugar, that may be butter, that may be other things which in excess cause health problems. But our point is moderation and use great ingredients. The problem is using processed ingredients or shortcuts. So in this book, we use butter, we use all kinds of different sugars. Deliciousness has to be the main focus
Ah.
of any recipe, I believe.
That's what I was trying to bring out
you
from
go.
you.
Gotta have it.
Yeah.
Gotta
we're,
have
all,
deliciousness.
we're all about that.
And no explanation. How many times?
Chris Russell.
Yeah, how many times do you go to a party or someone's house and the dessert comes and before they even bring it to the table, they say it's really healthy, so it doesn't taste like as good as a regular dessert, but just remember it's really healthy. And that's what you mean by right? Is that that's
Right.
the explanation?
Yeah. Nobody.
Sad face.
That doesn't
Okay.
make you want to try
That's
it.
just cardboard.
Okay. So we have on our website right now foodschmooze.org. You know schmooze. SCH like school. MMO like the cow. CE. Foodschmooze.org. There's a maple apple tart to 10 that you have, which has turbinado sugar. Before I go on with the other ingredients, unsalted European-style butter, we get that. Grade B maple syrup, which Chris Prosperi and I agree is the best tasting. Golden Delicious apples, a flaky pie crust dough, which you give a recipe for, and whipped cream with a little maple syrup in it. Fabulous. But turbinado sugar, why is that good?
Well, it's a semi-refined sugar. So here, this really falls into the deliciousness quotient. Sugar, when it's refined, is sort of used as a panacea because it doesn't have much flavor except sweetness. But turbinado has some of the natural molasses, the minerals, and many of the things that make sugar cane or sugar beets actually have interesting flavors. So I use it a lot in my baking.
Sounds delicious.
I like it too because it has other flavors besides sweet, and that is so important when you choose which sweetener you use, like honey, like maple. They all have distinct flavors besides sweet.
Bill Yosses, author of, with Peter Kaminsky, of course, who's your assistant person and handling the copy in the book. The Sweet Spot. I mean, it's such a genius title because ironically, you're talking about how to use sugar as a flavoring agent. And this is the gorgeousness of what Bill Yosses has done. He said, why don't we treat sugar that way? Reduce the sugar, and what happens? Boom. Other flavors come forward, and it's not that the dessert is less powerful, it's that you can taste everything together, and it's more in balance. That's what's so smart about this book. Hey, Bill, maple apple tart to 10. Are you going to kill us if we go to the supermarket and buy a pre-made pastry crust? Are you going to be mad at us?
Well, I'm in touch with all the grocery stores, so I know. Remember, I worked for the federal government, so.
I know.
You'll know if we're
Put
buying
it
Pillsbury.
down.
What I really care about is I just want to get people in the kitchen baking. You know, I think
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
satisfying. So, hey, if it's a shortcut, then go for it.
Listen, it's nothing to walk over to your oven and turn the dial. So you've got it at 375. You'll see this at foodschmooze.org. We are combining sugar and just a touch of water in that cast iron skillet. I love that thing. It dissolves within seconds, and it starts bubbling. And then what happens to it?
Well, it caramelizes, turns that wonderful brown color. So hundreds of new flavors are created when sugar caramelizes. So that's another reason why I recommend using sugar in that way, because you're adding a different flavor just by caramelizing it. All these new molecules are created which have a smokiness, a woodiness, a earthiness to caramel that doesn't exist in just plain sugar. So once it caramelizes, you have to really pay attention because it can go too fast and go too far. So what we recommend in this recipe is having your maple syrup nearby, and you put that in the pan while it's cooking, and that cools it down so you've stopped the caramelization.
Yes, and then what happens when you add that maple syrup?
Maple syrup, even though it's concentrated itself, has a lot of water in it, so that water evaporates. And now you have this really lovely viscous caramel, which has maple flavor to it. It has caramelized flavor.
Man.
And
You're
that's
killing
why
me.
I asked for
Stop
golden
there.
delicious apples in this tart, because
spoon.
they're like a sponge. So they just soak up all that deliciousness,
Oh,
and you
yeah.
can just feel it like going into those apples, and then they get softer as they bake. And
Yeah.
it's one of the tatin is one of the great desserts.
Oh, my God.
Absolutely.
So you've got that in your skillet. Then tell me, Bill, what happens next? You're going to put the apples in the bottom of the skillet?
Yes, and it's key to really pile a lot in, more than you might think, because they shrink so much during baking that if you just barely cover the bottom, you'll have gaps. So once you have this coloration, as we talked about from the caramelization, and you have your apples in there, then you put your raw pie dough. The pie dough creates a sort of a Dutch oven effect because the apples, as they steam in the oven, their flavor goes into that pie dough and absorbs it, so that when it's finished, you have this real concentration of delicious apples and a crispy crust.
Oh, yeah.
I love this idea, the sweet spot, dialing back sugar and amping up flavor. So other flavors come through. It might be the fruit. It might be Chris? The pastry.
Yeah, the pastry.
The-
I just
if
like
it's
the
a
grains.
nut flour,
Yeah.
the nuts might like. What are you saying?
I say I like the grains that he used too. That's really neat for me. For like quinoa and millet and stuff, and incorporating that in desserts is a great idea.
People complain to me, well, it's trendy. Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with trendy if you're really, contributing to people's welfare and flavor.
Smart going back to the original, right? How things
Exactly,
bread used to be
yeah,
like whole
exactly.
grains and had flavor and
Yeah, that's a great point, Alex. Hey, Bill,
Yes.
your almond cake. I love this almond flour. People get freaked out. It seems too complicated. Can
Yeah,
you
well-
put us at ease?
Sure. It's one of the things that are more and more available in every grocery store now. It's great to have around the house for so many things. I mean, you can put it in smoothies. You can make almond milk from it. So it's worth buying like a pound bag on the internet if you don't have it readily available.
It's like soy sauce in the 70s, right, where you couldn't find it. Now all these ingredients are available.
So can I sing the praises of Bill Yosses? Because normally in a recipe like this, it would be 1.5 cups of sugar. What does Bill do? 1/2 cup of superfine sugar. I swear to you right now, when you do this cake, you can still taste the almond in the background, the zest in the background, and your blood sugar is not spiking, which adds weight to people. It just makes sense, Bill.
Thank you for pointing that out. The funny thing is that when we were doing testing for this book, how quickly your palate adjusts to the new ratios. All these recipes, we went down as low as we could, but we never went below what made a delicious dessert. And in this case, for one thing, the almonds themselves are rich in flavor, and they have a lot of their own sweetness to them. And you'll ask yourself, why were we putting so much sugar in a layer cake before this?
it almost sounds like you're recalibrating your palate.
That's right.
You know, getting it back to where we were before people were just going crazy with sugar.
Very quickly, I want to tell you that there is poached whole pineapple on our website. Now, if you don't think that is a dramatic end to a dinner, it's amazing as a recipe with honey and anise and lemongrass and peppercorns and turmeric and ginger and saffron. I mean, honestly, it's so interesting. Wow. I love this idea. Although, can I just say, you call for jasmine flowers. Where am I going to get jasmine flowers?
Just use jasmine tea.
Oh, there you go.
Oh.
Yeah, I got a little bit too precious there.
Oh, I like it.
It wasn't precious. It was presidential. That's
It
what
was
it was.
presidential,
present,
yeah.
absolutely. I know.
Save that for when the Obamas come over for
I know.
dinner. That's when you bring out the
Oh, no, I'm making that this weekend. I got to try that.
I'm going to make you feel better. I had a chef on the show who said, and it was a delicious sounding recipe, and he said, okay, step number 1 is make a rabbit stock. And I thought, My eyes were crossing. I didn't know what to do from that point. So this is.
Well, I can't tell you how happy I am that you chose to mention this dessert because I had to fight for it to keep it in the book because people said, well, it's just the pineapple. But it's not. To me, it's as impressive as bringing a layer cake to the table. But it's something which is
it's
it
better.
turns really yellow from the turmeric. And you don't have to put all of those spices in there. I mean, just the poached pineapple itself is really a lovely end to a meal.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I
talk to you.
Just adore you. Thank you, Bill Yosses. His book is called The Sweet Spot, Dialing Back Sugar and Amping Up Flavor. We are on WNPR Thursdays at 3 and 9 p.m., Saturdays at noon. Weekdays, listen for my 60-second food schmoozes, and never eat more than you can lift. In New Haven, I'm Faith Middleton.
Everybody eats when they come to mind.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast on your schedule. And when you need a little more party in your life, we're here online at foodschmooze.org. And we hope you'll talk with us on Facebook. We're at Faith Middleton Food Schmooze.